Learning how to make paella probably won't change your life, but I think you should follow along either way because there are a few smaller cooking techniques that really changes paella from being just a kind of boring rice dish to being something extremely delicate. To me, what really takes paella to the next level is knowing how to make socarrat, the burnt layer at the bottom of the paella where the starch and the oil has congregated and burnt a little bit to make a crispy edge. Socarrat comes from the verb socarrar, to scorch or to burn, and can also refer to some burnt tiles actually, but here we're talking about the burnt bits at the bottom of the paella. Paella, like so many of the world's best dishes, comes from the merger of two different cultures. The Arabs brought rice to Spain, where the Romans had brought cooking utensils, and one of them was the paella pan, which now gives its name to this fantastic dish. To me, a paella needs to have certain base ingredients, and then you can freestyle a little about what other things you want to throw in there depending on what you like or what you have available. The most essential ingredient is of course rice. Traditionally in Spain they use a rice called arroz bomba, but that can be a bit difficult to find, so if you want an easy alternative I would recommend using risotto rice instead. In terms of flavor, I think it needs smoked paprika, saffron, lots of garlic, a few tomatoes and a stock to cook the rice in. For a vegetarian version, I really like green beans, red peppers, aubergine, and then for some protein, I think Butterbeans work really well. Start by chopping up your vegetables. I just do a pretty random dice on everything. You could grate your garlic, but I honestly don't want to clean an extra utensil, so I just chop it with my knife. The tomatoes need to cook out completely, so just chop them finely or blend them or grate them, it doesn't really matter. The aubergines will need the most time, so they go in first. I like to start in a dry pan with some salt to get out some of their water. When they have reduced by about 50%, they get a nice glog of olive oil and are joined by the pepper and green beans. Give it a pinch of salt and spread it out on the pan, but avoid stirring too much as we want the vegetables to pick up some color. When the vegetables have a few charred spots and are looking quite nice, we can add the garlic and fry for about a minute. I then add the onion and celery and turn down the heat a little. That needs about 5 minutes, so the onions can go a little translucent. And then I add the smoked paprika and the rice and fry for another minute. Then the tomatoes go in, and then you want to add your water or stock. The amount of liquid you need will depend on the type of rice you use, of course, but for my 150 grams of cannaroli rice, I use about 600 milliliters of water. To that I add half a stock cube, a pinch of saffron and the Butterbeans. Stir that up and then season the broth with salt and pepper. It should taste a little too salty when you try it like this, as it is going to be sucked up by the rice, which will then make the final dish feel a bit less salty than the current state. When I'm satisfied with my seasoning, I stir it up one final time and cook it on a medium heat with no lid for about 15 minutes. From this point onwards, you're not allowed to stir the paella, because we don't want to release any more starch from the rice and turn it into a risotto. After about 15 minutes of cooking, the water level should have dropped just beneath the rice, and I can add a few sprigs of rosemary, turn down the heat to low, and let the paella steam for another 5 minutes under a lid. I tell you, when you lift off that lid 5 minutes later, an incredible aroma fills your kitchen. But you have to stay a little patient now, because we still need the final and most essential element of a good paella, socarrat, the burnt bits at the bottom, where the oil and starch has accumulated and caramelized to a crispy and delicious crust. To make it, I finish my paella by frying it on a very high heat. It can be a bit tricky for the first few times to hit the sweet spot where it is crispy without being burnt, but around 2 minutes on a high heat usually does the trick for me. When you feel like you have a nice crispy bottom, you can take it off the heat and serve it with a few slices of lemon. You should now have some nice al dente rice that don't stick to each other and have a lovely contrast with the crispy socarrat. Today it seems I was a little scared of burning my rice on camera, so I actually pulled the plug on the socarrat a little too early and didn't get the perfect crust. But as you can see, there is a little bit of caramelization, but I definitely should have done a little better.
Buen provecho.